Here we are for part 3, possibly the last part. I might do like a part 4 postpartum. So I think we left off, I was about to push. So I pushed. My husband says, so for me, it felt like I pushed for like 10 minutes. My husband says, though, I was probably closer to an hour. So basically, if you haven't seen the other ones, I had a completely natural labor. I did not get an epidural, even though I was very tempted when I was at 8 centimeters to get an epidural because that pain was a lot. But, so we started pushing, and basically they, you know, you have to bring your legs up to your chest. And what was really cool is that my nurse and my husband were both holding me up, so all I had to focus on was the push part. And you push, how they had told me was we were going to push, or I was going to push, do 3 pushes in a contraction. So basically it was push for 30 seconds or 10 seconds, a count of 10, I think, rest, count of 10, rest, count of 10, rest for the next contraction to come by. And honestly, when you're doing that, the in between the contractions is like heaven, because there's no pain in comparison to what you're doing. Like, almost all the pain's alleviated in between contractions because there's so much when you're pushing. So I think it took me maybe 5 of those rounds to get her out, because she's a big baby. And what was kind of crazy is I don't remember this from like a first person point of view. I remember this more so from like as if I was like above my body, like an out of body experience. But I think that's because right above the bed there's a light which has a very reflective glass on it, so you can actually look up and see yourself like pushing. And so I could look up and like see what was going on down there instead of having a mirror or anything. So that was really cool. Sometimes I was able to look up, and at one point I do remember asking like, oh my god, can you see her hair? How much hair does she have? Because they could see her head, because I was during the crowning portion, and she was actually able to be like, yeah, I can you? And I like looked up and you could see Aria's hair like sticking out of me. So her hair entered the world before she did. And so basically my second to last push, I was pushing, we were doing really, really good, breathing really, really well. I did yell a few times. I was actually surprised. I almost felt like I wasn't, but the last few pushes I was definitely like guttural, like really just animalistic sounds were coming out of me. So mad respect for anyone who can do that without screaming, because it wasn't really, it was like a grunt, it was grunting. I'm not gonna do it because my baby's asleep. But just, if you've ever seen someone lift weights, that's what it is, just that kind of thing. And that's what I had kind of thought of labor as, was a really, really tough squat PR. So Aria's head and shoulders were out, and I was about to push the rest of her out. And probably the worst thing you can hear in the middle of a push when you're all natural, medicine free, is stop pushing. Also, it's probably the worst thing you can hear when you're in labor too, now that I think about it. Because Aria had her umbilical cord wrapped around her, but not like in a bad way, I guess I should say. From what my husband told me, it was like, it wasn't around her neck. It was like loosely around her neck, but it came like around her shoulders and back down. So what they had to do was they told me to quit pushing so that they could cut it and clamp it, so that it wouldn't like rip the placenta out of me, or it wouldn't rip, or it wouldn't hurt her in any way. So that really sucked. Was stop pushing. You're like, what the hell? This hurts a lot. What do you mean stop pushing? So I had to stop pushing, and then was able to push the rest of her. And she was a super, super long baby, because I was like, oh my god, is she out yet? So 10-10, she was born at 8 pounds 9 ounces, 22 inches long, with a full head of hair. And this is her.
We'll give you a little sweet bottle, but you can
Yeah, I forgot I could take pictures while I was recording video. Why haven't I been doing that?
left back. What, babe?
Forgot I could take pictures while I was recording video.
I'm gonna hold her up there next to it if you want to take a picture. There we go.
So like I had said in a previous video, they were worried about her swallowing the amniotic fluid while she was in there, and she did. So that's why they took her over to the warmer, and they they stuck a tube down her throat and helped to get that fluid out. And she came out in a perfect color. She was not blue. It did not seem like she was struggling very much. Before they actually took her over, they were able to hand her to me, and I was able to get her on my chest for a little bit. It's weird because you think like when your child's going to be born, you're just going to bawl your eyes out, but it was a very weird kind of cry. Like I was so happy that I couldn't cry, but I was like, oh my god, it's there. Like I was laughing. It's a very weird emotion. Like you're happy, you're in a lot of pain. You're just overcome with everything. And for a while, I didn't really feel any of the pain anymore because she was out, she was there. And I mean, that's what they say is that once your baby's born, you get like this huge rush of oxytocin to almost like counteract the effects of all the stress that your body just went through. And so they took her over to the warming machine, and my husband went with her. I was telling him, I was like, go with her. And so that's how we have the video. And then, so they're working on her to get her, she was breathing fine. She wasn't in distress. They knew that she had fluid in her lungs, so they wanted to get that out. So then it was time to, on me, get the placenta out, but it wasn't really coming out. So that they were kind of like, okay. So probably worse than labor is actually getting a pelvic massage after labor, and that is where your labor nurse pushes hard as shit on your pelvis to help your uterus to contract to release the placenta. That shit hurts. It is not a massage. I mean, it's a massage, but it's like some large Swedish person laying on you and punching you in the face. Like, imagine just like someone hitting you in the stomach and you're like, you just recover, and then a bulldozer hits you in the stomach. It's horrible. It's the worst thing in the world. So they're pushing on it, and so they try to get it. And so she kind of like tugs on the umbilical cord a bit, and the umbilical cord rips. Remember, I am past due. So once you're past due, placenta can start to deteriorate, amniotic fluid starts to dry up, everything just kind of goes to hell. And so that's kind of like why it was hard to get the placenta out, because the umbilical cord wouldn't pull. So then they had to actually get like what looked like two crowbars looking things, and put those on me and kind of opened me up a bit, and then coaxed it out by more pelvic massaging, and then rush of blood came after that. So they then worked on sewing me up. I actually only had 2 first-degree tears. One was a paraurethral tear, which is where you tear on your urethra, the pee hole. So that was cool. And then another one, I can't remember the name of it, but it is like, basically, I did not get the bad tear. It was all up front. I want to say it was like I'll put it here what it is. And basically it's like your labia tears, the outside of your vagina tears. So nothing inside. It was all first degree, so it's all surface level, and I only had about 6 stitches put in. Even though I was given a local anesthetic for that, it really didn't kick in. I could feel all of it being sewn up. But I kind of realized later on why they were going so fast with sewing me up. I was bleeding a lot, like a lot. So they were trying to work really fast on that, and my labor nurse wasn't the biggest fan of how much I was bleeding. So basically how they help to get the rest of the blood out of you is they still push on your pelvis, and that kind of helps to get anything else that's out. So she would do that. And then this is really cool. I don't know, it was my first pregnancy, so I don't know, but there's this lady there that actually comes and cleans you up with like this nice feeling warm water, and cleans you up all down there. So that was actually really cool. You get like a little sponge bath. So you get all nice and clean. And the one thing that my labor nurse was most worried about was how much I was actually bleeding, because I was just bleeding a lot, basically. And so they hooked me up onto actual oxytocin, not Pitocin, actual oxytocin, to help my uterus start contracting and to start healing, so that the bleeding would stop. And I would say also one of the craziest things that happens after birth is that apparently is totally normal is like uncontrollable shaking, because your body goes through a fight or flight reflex, because just all this adrenaline is running through you. And so that was probably the craziest one, was uncontrollable shivers. Like I couldn't, if I had wanted to try and stop them, I couldn't have, and they even said like, don't try and stop, like you're fine, like this is good. So just shaking uncontrollably. And so after I was pretty much set up, Aria was set up, they brought her over to me and we did skin to skin, and we actually were able to latch and breastfeed immediately. So I would say between her birth and when we got to that was less than 10 minutes. To me it felt like an eternity, but I was able to hear her crying the whole time, and that was really awesome. So yeah, that's my birth story. And about an hour to 2 hours afterward, we did get moved to our private room, where we got to be a family of 3 for the night. So I will do a video on Aria's first night, because kind of how we handled her swallowing the amniotic fluid was a pretty big deal for us, and also just kind of like what the neonatal the neonatal specialist came in, and there were some other things that we talked about with her. So it'll probably just be a quick video of being a family of 3, and just like a lot of little medical things that happened at the hospital that I was unaware of that would happen, and kind of like how to handle them, because they weren't huge, but it's just stuff you don't think about. So if you haven't seen the other 2, go check out the other 2 and any other pregnancy related video you'd like. That's basically all my channel has been, just pregnancy. I mean, it took up 9 months of my life, so what else am I gonna do with it? But yeah, thanks for watching.